So as usual, we'll begin with a prayer for teacher and student. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhanatu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So, all good. So, welcome here. We've been conducting our last few days retreat here at a place called Landermere. And beautiful, in just less than almost an acre of land here, with a wonderful garden established. We have some 9 participants, 10 if you include me. So there's a question and answer session, but one question has arisen from here, and it's around the subject of affirmations. And we asked here for a definition. What do you feel are affirmations? Many business schools will tell you the affirmation can be a sentence or something like that, but that's not exactly how we think. And an affirmation is an affirmative movement in the mental field that will give us some immediate benefit, and the immediate benefit will also formulate benefit for the future if we sustain it, if we repeat it. So we can say it's a repetitive thought that is positive, that has no first person singular in, we can add that, or future tense. Because if it's first person singular, it will be intrinsically negative. It will say that I have primary importance in this. And I illustrated this with a story. Supposing a farmer has a piece of land and they have a drought, their crops are withering, then they might, if they are religious, appeal to a higher power and ask, may we please have rain? It's equivalent to an affirmation in a conventional kind of sense of it. And so the message is received by whatever means. They no longer use fax in heaven, so they're all up to date. In fact, I think there's a heavenly WhatsApp group, probably. And so it's delivered to the grand storehouse. Let's be clear, what's a storehouse? Yesterday we were talking about nature. We can define nature as that infinite storehouse that supplies bodies and minds to evolve toward perfection. And therefore it has a motherly aspect. And these last few days, there is a great festival, autumn festival, which I mentioned yesterday, that highlights the intrinsic wonder and beauty and specialness of this season, where things start changing. And there's a beauty about the change. We went for a mindful walk yesterday, and many people noticed how some leaves were browning. And particularly if you go to North America, Canada, so on, you'll see this enormous display, wonderful display of browns and yellows and what have you. It's a speciality of maple trees and so on in that region. So Mother Nature is like an infinite storehouse. When we make a mental movement within it, we're placing our order. And so when we assert words, which is how we think, and every word has a corresponding concept. I use the example of elephant. If I assert elephant, then an image of elephant comes in the mind, not in the brain, because we don't have a head that will accommodate an elephant. So the image is there, and the image is accompanied by a feeling. Otherwise, it's just a blank. It's just a word, and the word has a concept, no doubt. But supposing the elephant that I mentioned has no real characteristics or movement, then it'll be a dull exercise. And every repetition of a dull exercise will induce sleep. The principle behind counting sheep. How many sheep do you can't sleep? Okay, please count sheep, say the people of a different generation, my generation actually. Please count sheep. Imagine these sheep jumping over the fence. It's monotonous. Every sheep looks the same. A repetitive movement like that, and it's the repetition of it that makes you fall asleep. Now it leads us to a subject, another subject really, called mantra. And we discussed yesterday that one definition is mantra is a protecting thought, and therefore is attached to a feeling. So there are two types of mantras that we can discuss a bit later. But what about ordinary affirmative thoughts in your own language that carry with it an interesting concept that involves a quality you want? Let's come back to our farmer. A farmer requests that the drought be relieved on his farm, and the message comes to heaven, and the infinite storehouse, which is contained, that we call nature, organizes all the rainfall available and lands on my farm and spoils my crops and floods my house. What should my mental movement have been? It should have been contained within it a generosity of spirit that says, may everyone get the rain. May everybody get sufficient rainfall for their crops. That includes me. It's an all-inclusive formula. I don't have to say, oh, and me. So with this all-inclusiveness that is going on, devoid of first-person singular and future tense, we're asking, okay, let us all have abundance. Let us all have rainfall. In fact, a mental movement before a meditation will be, according to Swami Vivekananda's first steps in his Raja Yoga, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be blissful. And if we read some of the ancient prayers, it always includes all beings, not just human beings, but all beings. We, a few minutes ago, had a visitor on four legs, a dog that had its nice round, greeting us, sniffing a little bit, trotting around, expecting maybe a little tickle behind the ear or something, and persuasively left. All beings, because of this concept of an infinite storehouse, this nature supplies all suitable bodies and all suitable minds for growth, evolution, and eventually blooming into perfection. This is the state we're in. It's a different concept from the so-called Darwinian or even neo-Darwinian concept of evolution, because as I mentioned yesterday, evolution is unfolding, or we may have mentioned it Friday evening, I can't remember, and unfolding. You don't get anything new. Now, if you assert some of the most important values, it should carry sufficient feeling and sufficient generosity to have an immediate resonating effect on the human body. By asserting strong, for example. Strong is a key value. We have to be strong. What is the secret behind subjective morality? It is all around strength. It takes strength to change your course. It takes strength to change your habits. It takes strength to be independent-minded. It takes strength to be a rebel. And rebels are the ones who are the creative inventors, the ones who show people leadership in a different way. We should all be magnificent rebels. We should all question things that we are taught. Otherwise, we fall into a hole of superstition. And that becomes a degradation. It becomes a regression into an abyss of superstition and ignorance. So we should challenge these concepts. As I mentioned on Friday, teenagehood is our natural method of challenge. So teenagers feel free to challenge traditional old concepts. They feel the freedom to ask important questions: what, where, why, how, when. And people who are stuck in tradition or a changeless stagnation, ever looking for, support for their doctrine or dogma, unfortunately, they won't grow, they won't change. And the secret of growth is, it is a progressive thing that happens from within and happens naturally. You can't go out to a flower and say, "Good morning," and line all the flowers up in military fashion. "Today we'll grow 2 inches." And you pull one flower and pull it up like this. No. The flower knows how to grow. There's an inner formula that allows it to take all the ingredients necessary for growth. And it knows its course, provided some environmental factors are involved. Sunshine has to be there, rainfall has to be there, the nutrients in the soil has to be there, nitrogen has to be there, all of these, carbon has to be there. All of these things factor in and allow this growth by itself. So we should not be in a hurry, but we can create a catalyst within us. So if we assert strong, then we are asserting our own inherent inner strength. It's not that we don't have strength. It's not we want strength, we haven't got it. No, you're already strong and full and free and perfect, say the Upanishads. We have to assert it. And when we say Upanishads, we're talking of any credible teacher in history. We're talking of a Jesus, we're talking of a Buddha. If it was not possible to gain this perfection, we wouldn't even try. Be perfect as your Father in heaven, says Jesus. And many people quiver with that. How is it possible? There's no such thing as perfection. They're looking at it from the material point of view, not the point of view of spirit. Spirit has no borders. Spirit has no boundaries. Spirit has no limitations. Spirit is always full and free. You can't add to it, you can't take away from it. So our nature is that. We can establish this through following the formula of those ancient people that discovered it. Not just ancient people, people even currently. Because it's here and now, it's not something to get, it's something already here. And the example is often like this. Supposing there's a visitor to London, supposing it is the President of the United States visiting London, and so every effort is made. You hide the squatters, you clean up the graffiti, you polish the slum areas, you fly all the flags, British flag, American flag, it all goes up. Now, with the streets clean and the visitor coming, they have a question. We heard the president is coming, that's why all the flags are flying, that's why everything is looking well. So my question is the king about to come tomorrow? Or is the king here because of the president? If the president is here already, then we don't put the graffiti back. We don't put rubbish in the streets again. We maintain it. So with a cleaning situation, cleaning the body, cleaning the mind, making a suitable instrument to grow into our perfection, is the president or the monarch or the guest of honor, is that here? We can say king if you like. Is the king here? Or is the king about to come? If it's about to come, when will it come? And much of the early Christian theology was on the expectation. Kingdom of heaven will come. Where is it? Look out the window. Not here yet. Salvation is to come. Look out the window. Never mind. It won't come today. You have to wait for a post-mortem condition. Well, if perfection is there, it should be now, not afterwards. That's just an excuse. If perfection is here, it's here and now. And that is the reason why we do a cleaning of the instrumentation of body and mind. We can assert strong now. When we assert strong, and we can accompany it with a visualization. Supposing we decide an elephant is a symbol of this strength. Then an elephant is strong enough to knock you over and crush you with one movement. With the earth-moving equipment of the ancient days. Then you see we now have a wonderful picture of it, strong. This is a key value. It takes strength to go against the grain. It takes strength for spiritual practice because spiritual practice in Sanskrit is called tapasya. Tapasya means generation of heat. When you go against the grain, you cause friction, and friction causes heat. You know this. So a breakfast discussion, don't worry about it. So, strong, true. Things must be true. When things are true, things are not hidden. What is truth? Truth is the realization of what is actually here. It's a hidden thing for most of us because we register the true state of things as all the changing material that is around us. We don't analyze it properly. Proper analysis of this is called viveka, or discernment. Looking at things as they are, not as we want them to be, or not as we see them to be, but something is there behind it. When we investigate it properly, we find that there are different layers that unfold. Physical layer is a changing layer, but inside that will be an energetic layer, and inside that will be a mental layer, and inside that will be an intellect layer, and inside that will be a blissful layer. The Taittiriya Upanishads gives us 5 layers, and each layer, when we go inward, becomes more expansive, more truthful, more real, more subtle. And each layer we peel off, like a Russian doll. Each layer we peel off, we get more access, closer access to the truth. And the truth will set you free. So by asserting true, and it means its expression of truth, that thought, word, and deed has to all match nicely. Our speech has to be truthful. Now, some people say, but what about a white lie? I don't know of such a thing. And sometimes in some countries, there's a cultural thing. Oh yes, I'll see you next week. Means I'll never see you in my life again. To many people, see. Or I'll give you a call. Didn't say which year. So we have to be careful about this because an absence of that again gets taken up by every single layer and aspect of the human body and its environment. So truthful is a universal value, no doubt. Strong, true, wise. We should get inner wisdom. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. And the subject of this retreat was power and presence. We can get power. We have it within us. Enormous potential we have. We can exert it. Let's take, for example, in the last century, there was enormous power wielded by Germany. And more or less, the vast majority of German citizens went along with it, were carried along with the emotion of it, asserting their power or their inherent power in the light of a previous world war that they didn't feel was just. In other words, the peace treaty that they signed, they felt we were hard done by. We don't deserve this. And so movements occur. And then you have a dynamic, charismatic leader that is able to shift people's power, their inner power, not understanding that it is actually weakening them because there's dependency there, unquestioning allegiance. This is the story of humanity, no doubt. Wherever you find, says the Bhagavad Gita, any expression of power, there I, that is the divine, am there. We're not judging whether this power is good or bad, but power is Mother Nature's expression. It is powerful, extremely powerful. And we can use this power of thought and mental movement for good or ill. There's no judgment about it. It's much better to use it for good. So strong is a powerful word. Truth is a powerful word. But wise is a powerful word because if we use our power, we should use it wisely. Nowadays, we have access to nuclear weapons, much more severe than those that ended the Second World War, involving nuclear warfare with Hiroshima destroyed, with the effects still in operation and visible today. So we have to be careful how we use this power. At the moment, We're in a critical state where there are countries that are threatening nuclear warfare. There are at least 2, 3 countries that have this threat of nuclear warfare, and nobody wants it. The devastating effects are not worth thinking about. These are beyond our imagination, the destruction that this will cause. And so, despite the fact that many people think that we are saber-rattling, these countries are doing it, and so on and so forth, this is a very real threat. So, if you have nuclear power, you should have the wisdom that goes with it. And wisdom isn't gained through asserting territorial rights. Wisdom is not gained through selfishness. Sometimes territoriality, this is my land, it really goes along with, it's an extension of egoism. And we discussed last night, or sometime we discussed that ego, I think it was last night, we discussed how egoism can be developed and how egoism is destructive. It is the main obstacle, really, to this realization of the inherent truth of who we are. It supports a mask, a persona, a personality, which is not really us, and yet our ignorance assumes it is. So power is necessary. We were mentioning yesterday the war, the story of Rama, between Rama and Ravana. Ravana had great power. He had great power, mythologically, derived from Brahma. Brahma means cosmic mind. Cosmic mind has no discernment in it. It's a resource. It's the creator of the universe. And its power is infallible. And if I think constantly that I will conquer the world and oppress people and assert that continuously, no doubt that will happen. I'm mobilizing cosmic mind, unless it's suitably neutralized by intrinsic good in the world, by cosmic balancing power. Rama acts as the cosmic balancing power and destroys Ravana, but really Ravana's only lack of wisdom destroyed him. So power with no wisdom is not a good idea, it can be destructive. So strong, true, wise, full. Don't think that there are gaps. Don't think that there are empty holes in the universe. Everything is full and free. The fullness is your own perfection. You're not an empty vessel. You don't have to struggle. You just have to tune. Tune the mind into the fullness that you already have. So strong, true, wise, full, free. You're already free. Everybody assumes they're not free and therefore looks for freedom. People want to be free of gender discrimination, free of political oppression. It's one of the strongest drives in humanity. We all want freedom. Nobody wants to be a slave. So you're free already. By asserting your freedom that you already have, you'll get the freedom, you'll experience the freedom that is your birthright. So strong, true, wise, full, free, these are assertive words. Strong, true, wise, full, free, truth itself, beauty. There is an intrinsic quality within you that is intrinsically beautiful and arrives as a cultural appreciation of beauty. There is a universal agreement beyond subjective agreement about what is beauty. And it has nothing to do with modern art necessarily. There's an intrinsic aesthetic quality that we have. We immediately recognize it. We recognize it in a flower. We recognize it in a natural scene. We recognize it in a sunrise, a sunset. We recognize it in noble qualities. We recognize it as a spirit of generosity. We recognize it in a beautiful, generous, thankful personality. That person is a nice person. They have an inner beauty. And it has nothing to do with physical beauty. You can have an eye for beauty, even though the external image might be something like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or whatever your idea of non-beauty is. There's a kind of fun phrase I heard long back. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And then there's a commentary. Get it out with optics. Anyway, that's aside. So, goodness. Goodness is a quality we all want. Oh, I want to be a yogi. No. I want to have extreme powers. I want to levitate. I want to be looked up to in my spiritual state. No. Just try and be a good person, please. That's enough. Sometimes we come across people who are enthused about esoteric subjects, and we have to learn to eschew them, spit them out. They're no good to us. Why do you want to keep things secret? If your nature is full and free and perfect, and if your destiny is to explore that and to manifest that from within, this truth should be surely shouted from the rooftops. Surely it is the panacea for all misery, for all difficulties, for all problems, be they psychological, be they physical, whatever it may be. Surely we should share it with everybody, not keep it to ourselves and say you have to be a specific member of our club. You have to take some ritualistic secret thing, some secret handshake or something must be there. Oh, this thirst for hidden mysticism and esotericism, get it. This is not truthful. You should shout it from the rooftops. Kingdom of Heaven is within you. Everybody should know it. This is your inheritance. People should know it. Those people who want to close it up and keep it secret, these people want to dominate. These people want to control. These people have an egoistic agenda. You can only do healing if you get some kind of certificate, some kind of special qualification with certain mantras and all this nonsense, absolute nonsense. And so how do we overcome that? We rely on those original sources that we call scripture. Nobody has anything new to say. If somebody claims, oh, I have a new teaching, forget about all the old things. This is the new way. Be careful, because there may be money involved, apart from anything else. Money, status, or any of these things. So there's nothing new. The discoveries of the mystics today will be the discoveries as they were 100,000 years ago, and will be the same discoveries in 100,000 years hence. So, truth, beauty, goodness. Now you can add any one you like. Strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love. Love is the next one. And last night we gave a definition of love. Was it last night? I always forget when it was. I say so many things. Anyway, we said that love, by definition, we can use Swami Vivekananda's definition, is a kind of triangle of qualities. It has no rival, it has no reward, and it has no fear. Fearlessness is another way of stating our goal. Our goal should be fearlessness. You should have no fear. Why should you have no fear? Because if you register a unity of existence, you can't say the left hand fears the right hand. It's one body. You can't say, I got up this morning and I was afraid that my right hand might slap me on my left cheek. So I tied it down, I tied it to the bed. Now it can't move. No danger there now. What a foolish thing. The body is one unit. I'm one unit. You only have some fear. What is fear? Fear is faith in heredity. Fear is faith in heredity. I am so-and-so. My ancestors were like this. I'm a genetic being. I am purely operating within my own biology, and that's it. So you get rid of that, please. So where are we in our affirmations? Strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love. And you can put harmony there as well. You can add any other thing you like as well. Now, sometimes when people are in difficulty, I give them a diagram to do. It's called a yantra. Please sew this. What it means is, unbeknown to them, every time they sew part of an S that's strong, they're asserting strong. Every time they put in wise, they're becoming wiser. They're shuffling around all the cosmic natural forces available and creating what they want, because everything comes from the word. That means everything comes from a concept. Everything comes from a thought. Thought is the supreme author of everything else. Don't complain this universe is against you or bad or difficult. Assert your freedom. Assert yourself. You can do it through these words. Now then, this leads us to another subject. Well, let's see if we are okay with this subject first. Okay? Yes, all good. All right. Okay. Now, of course, in affirmations, it no longer becomes positive if we say may or I want this. Even mentally, if we assert it. Because as we said before, when you say I want something, it's also equivalent to saying in brackets, I haven't got it. +1, -1, you get nothing. So religious aspiration and prayer begins with this. But sooner or later, we realize, as I mentioned previously, that maybe the universe is not full of gaps. That maybe it is complete. That maybe we already have the fullness. That maybe the heaven we're looking for is within, not in a post-mortem condition. Post-mortem condition is just a holiday camp. A favorite question to many teachers, what happens after death? It's always a good question. What happens after death? But it's based on assumption that I am a person that is going to live, I'm a person that's going to have a life, and I'm going to die. If you take the I out of it, you'll be on the right track. So you see, as mentioned previously, it's like asking the BBC Broadcasting Corporation, what will happen when you die? BBC Broadcasting Corporation will say, no, we've been going on all this time and we don't intend to die. Of course, your transistor may die. What happens if the tuning mechanism that it has goes out of sync? Well, it's nothing to do with the BBC Broadcasting. That's your problem. So in a sense, there's no death. And anyway, we have a dress rehearsal for it every night. So this morning, pre-breakfast conversation, I asked, did you sleep well and so on? Yes, okay. Deep sleep, good, wonderful. That's a dress rehearsal for death, isn't it? Because in deep sleep, you're taking away your personality, you're taking away your individuality. There's no time, there's no space, nothing is there. So death is nothing to be feared. We die every night. We vacate our individuality. We cease to become Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. That's so useful for passport purposes. But our real nature is always full and free, and observing all these things. Observing the drama of life in 3 basic episodes. One where we are the actor, one where we are the witness of a play, and one where we are the witness of a blank stage. Witness of 3 trains coming and going. Knowing that, the station master registering, oh, train number 1, train number 2, train number 3, is not going or coming with the trains, standing on the platform observing it. This is how we know, as a final conclusive argument, that we are not part of the waking dream, dreamless sleep syndrome. How can we be? If we were, we'd not be able to independently witness it. We would not be able to say, I had a peaceful sleep. We'd not be able to say, I did this yesterday. We'd not be able to say, I was a king with a queen in a palace and lived for 1,000 years. So all of these indicate an independent witness, which is also a knower. And when we discuss this question of consciousness, as we did yesterday, we have to ask this question. It is not a hard problem, as the philosopher David Chalmers would have us think, which has stimulated great thought in the scientific world. We're looking at the narrow neurology of things. Maybe you can find consciousness in a corner of the brain. Maybe you can find it in a synapse. No, not at all. You won't find it there. And the person's name I was searching for yesterday is Dame Susan Greenfield. She's a baroness, and she has this discovery. I tried all the methods to locate, locally or overall in the brain, what section of the brain lights up and reveals consciousness. And they discovered there's no specific part of the brain like this. Not the hippocampus, not any other part of the brain. It's not in the neocortex at all. What it is, it's like an infiltrating place. It's like a lake. Now we come back to original yogic concepts. What is the mind? The mind, you see, they don't say mind. They say antakarana, internal instrument. What is this instrument? It is like a lake. And there are various waves within it. And because of this disturbance in the waves, that is a disturbance in your mental field, you cannot see what is inside. You cannot see the bottom. And when you see the bottom, what are you doing? You're revealing your own inner self, your own inner perfection. So how do we neutralize these waves? What is the method? The method is to use another wave, a non-egoistic one, a one that has the effect of calming all the other waves. Two waves going forward will have an interference pattern. One hollow will neutralize a peak. One peak will neutralize a hollow, and it'll come out. There's a great experiment called the double slit experiment, where you put a particle through two slits, single particle, let's say an electron or a photon, expecting it to go through either slit A or slit B and find its way onto a scintillating screen and show a pattern. Only two patterns should be there. Only two landing areas should be there. And in between should be a blank. There are only three possibilities. It either goes through slit A or slit B, or hits the in-between and bounces back. Like a baseball or a golf ball or something. You hit it. It should go through this one, or bounce back in between. And in different places. But what do they find? No, they're not two strips. There are multiple strips, with evidence of each individual landing, no doubt, within it. But several strips and blanks, called an interference wave pattern. We thought it was like a tennis ball. We thought it was a particle. But it's behaving like a wave. How can we figure this out? And why we'd say a wave? Because one wave comes, interferes with the other, and we find an interference pattern. Now, supposing there are three waves. Supposing we interfere even with those, it has a neutralizing effect, and all is calm. And these three waves are part of what we discussed yesterday called Maya. Maya consists of these three evolutionary forces. We call these gunas. Guna means a rope, something that binds you. So if our primary urge is for freedom, how do we become free? We have to use the components that we have in a sensible way, using these values I've mentioned: strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, with a sense of feeling and a sense of broadcast. May everyone have them. I have them already, and I'm asserting what I have already. And by asserting what I have already, I'm creating positive waves that we call sattva. The name suggests purity, the name suggests truth, the name suggests a non-egoistic condition that will contaminate it, a non-ignorance position, a position full of knowledge and potential freedom. And therefore, every religion, regardless of what it is, will say, please be good. Please assert values which are loving, humane, that contain all these other qualities. This is the key to why morality is important. Morality and ethics defined in slightly different ways. Morality, the assertion of may all be strong, may all be wise, and so on, all of these things. Ethics Ethics is taking the highest ethics, taking the least egocentric position, the least selfish position would be the highest ethics. It's a very simple definition. Ethical behavior in every context. So why should they be these things? Not randomly, not to do with social survival. Materialists will have it like that. No, these are inner qualities you already have. And we know the key obstacle is egocentricity, a position of protection, which allows us to combat the world, or withdraw from the world, or stand there mesmerized by it. And so we reveal the truth by seeing these different evolutionary forces operating that also produce our illusion. And these resources come to us in hidden form, which leads me to a story. It's a breakfast story. You weren't there for breakfast, so I'll tell it again. So I see, so there was one man struggling. He was found stranded in the desert. His camel had been frightened and ran away in the Sahara Desert. And after some time, the hot sun beating down, he tied a handkerchief around his head. That didn't help. Sooner or later, the last drop of water was finished, and his throat started to get parched. And the sun was merciless. And the dry, hot desert, even the hot sand, was unbearable to touch. He walks on and walks on, hoping to find a destination. He knows broadly the direction, but doesn't know exactly. And fortunately, he sees on the horizon a figure. It's a camel with a rider. And the camel approaches him, gets nearer and nearer, and he thinks, here I am saved. What a wonderful thing. God loves me after all. He doesn't want me to die in the desert. And the man on the camel, he asks, thank goodness you're here. I'm desperate for water. Do you have any water? And the man says, I don't have any spare water. I myself don't want to perish. So I don't really have not even a drop to spare, not even a drop. But as luck would have it, I'm a merchant specializing in neckties, and I can offer you a necktie. I can offer you a necktie, and I have various varieties. And he brings out these samples. Some are striped, some are spotted, some are green, some are brown, some are patterned, some are plain. The man says, I really want water. I don't really want a necktie. Oh, okay, good luck. Off he goes. And as he goes on, now he's crawling on all fours and completely desperate. And eventually he sees another figure coming toward him. Water, water. No, I'm sorry, but I do have neckties. And he brings out his sample, and it's a little different from the previous man's. And he goes off. 3 times it happens. And as good fortune would have it, he sees in the distance and rubs his eyes. Is this a mirage? He sees a flashing sign, hotel, hotel, refreshments, refreshments, food served all day, drinks, and he feels elated. And painfully, he makes his way to the steps of the hotel. Painfully uses the last vestige of his energy, crawls up the steps, about to enter the swing doors. And the commissar is standing on the front, dressed in a hat and a long coat. I'm sorry, sir, you cannot enter without a tie. So our resources come often in a hidden way, and we have to look out for these signals. Now, Mother Nature has a way of providing them. First of all, we have to have faith in this great infinite storehouse, that all the resources are supplied. Because if we say that this nature, which equates to the manifested God, is love, then we have to understand we are intrinsically looked after. In this case, in this season, by a motherly entity, a motherly deity that looks after us like your own biological mother. And then we have to recognize where are the green lights that the mother is guiding us toward. And some of them are hidden. And we know that they're green lights because if we go in the opposite direction and head for a red light, we will bang our heads and be forced to return. This is called trial and error, but also lack of faith. And when we see all the green lights lined up, we know our destiny all right. And so we have faith in that and we become opportunists. We become careful to use the resources guiding us. We know that behind everything is a divine helmsman saying, please, this way, my child. I am the divine helmsman. This is my boat. And I personally will row you across what we call samsara, the whole river or ocean, if you like, the ocean of life. And I'll deliver you safely at your destination, where you will discover that you are one with this ocean. And then, of course, we require hard work. We require a positive attitude. We require perseverance. Now, one additional thing is necessary in spiritual life. This is for any life. One additional thing is there, purity of mind. We have to understand that all this, it has to be registered to the divine. We don't have anything of our own. We have to re-register the body as not my body. This is the divine earth car supplied to me. This is not my mind. This is the divine mechanism that I can purify, that shows the way by its clarification. So how does this illusion occur? Through this composition of these threefold things. We've mentioned it many times by virtue of Vedantic examples. Several examples are there. The most popular and graphic would be the example of a rope appearing as a snake. In the twilight of the day, when our eyesight is not so good, when we can mistake shadows for realities, there we find something coiled up, and we immediately project onto it a dangerous snake. I always accompany this story by saying, this never happened in Ireland because St. Patrick banned all the snakes there. And then fear enters into us, a sense of how will I defend myself? What strategic plan will I do? Will I withdraw carefully and run away? Will I confront it aggressively and kill it? Will I preempt the snake's attack? Will I make sure that this poison, its toxic elements don't go into me and enter into my bloodstream? Or I don't know what to do. I'm standing there mesmerized with the hypnotic snake in front of me. But there's a fourth course. The fourth course of action is to examine carefully the nature of this coiled up thing. And we can get a torch. We have a torch already. It's called attention. Attention is a revealing entity. It highlights things for us. And when we did a mindful walk yesterday, we were using the power of attention and shuffling it around from one item to the other. And every time we did it, it revealed something more to us, something different for us. And it's the power of attention that we use as a revealing factor. And so when we put this spotlight of the power of attention, maybe you require another person's spotlight. This person is called a competent teacher or guru. And we say, please shine your light here. And what would happen? In the clarity of this attention and this revealing light, it reveals not a snake, but a coiled up rope. And we superimpose snake because it has the same characteristics. It didn't appear as anything else. It appears as something similar. This whole world is something similar to what is underneath it. It is not divorced from it. It is a clue, and we are mistaking something for another thing. But it has all the characteristics of the base of the substance. But what we are seeing is insubstantial, ephemeral. It comes, it goes, it changes. When we observe it correctly, all the fear goes away. All the fear, all the doubt, all the temptation goes away, disappears, because we see the reality as it is. Now, of course, every story is incomplete. Every story is inadequate. Every analogy is not exactly what it should be. And so the other finality of the story is more like this. Not only do I see the rope, I am that coiled up thing. When uncoiled, I'm uncoiling my full potential, and I realize the fullness of what is actually there, removing the illusion. Now the shining light that I shone is called sattva. It is that rope, that guna, which is revealing. The projection is called rajas. I projected something onto it, like projecting something onto a screen, the screen itself being the reality. And then the rope was hidden to me. This is called tamas. These three factors have to be there to create an illusion. An apparition has to have these three. Other examples would be, I see a tree stump, I mistake it for a man. Let's be more dramatic, a man with a hat on. When I go close to it, I see, it's only a tree stump. Or I walk along a beach and I see mother of pearl there, and I mistake it for silver. And get excited, I'll be wealthy. When I examine it closely, I see, oh, it is mother of pearl glistening in the sunlight. So these are some examples. One more example, talking about the desert. In the distance, I see something shimmering. Being very thirsty, I want the fruits of what I see, namely, there is a beautiful oasis with sparkling water and date palms, aplenty. But as I go closer, the shimmering shows me an appearance and disappearance, and I see, it is but an illusion. And I discover it only because I catch it. I catch it in its elusive aspect. Should something like that be shimmering? Should it appear and disappear? Should it be so vague? So the mirage, this mirage is the trick in life. This whole thing is caused by what I mentioned yesterday as apparitional causation. Something looks like something, and it's not. And it's useful, because without this apparitional causation, we cannot engage in the play. What happens after death? You can't ask the question. But Ramakrishna, a 19th century mystic that I mentioned yesterday, he gives a beautiful example from his own observations. There are potters who make pots from clay. These clays have to be fired. They have to be put into the kiln. Now, sometimes you find a careless animal, like a cow, comes and knocks all the pots over, and those that have already been fired, those that are complete, will be broken and can never be used again. But those that are still wet, that clay is still wet and can be recombined, and that's still ready for the furnace. You see, once we are all fired up and nicely and refined, once we have arrived at our destination, there's no point in being remolded by the potter. We'll just go into our pristine state of who we are already. And many people are frightened by this prospect because they're attached to their sense of individuality and they don't want to be swallowed up in the whole. But really what it is to immerse, to be saturated in your own blissful nature. And any fear of that is a lack of recognition of that. So we have to develop this knowledge. Knowledge is the antidote to ignorance. So we are still in the play. Congratulations. All right, so all that was there, and we didn't discuss the mantra possibility. We can make a few mention of that. But let me pause and see, are there any other questions, by the way, before I go on?
Well, just a practical thing. What if you feel so enthusiastic and you proclaim from the rooftops your awareness of something? Everyone runs away. What is then not a good thing to do?
Okay, so proclaiming the truth from the rooftops and everybody runs away. Well, I would have to say objectively that's their problem. Yeah. We don't have to run away. Most people will run away, because they're entrenched in the materialistic world. But we are confident that nature has the infinite storehouse, has the ongoing process within everyone. And unfoldment is unfoldment in their own time, at their own pace. So we can't rescue people. There's no question of, let me save this person from pain. We would like to. But there has to be a matching movement on the other side, you see. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them think. So, okay, a few comments about mantras. Mantras are much more than affirmations. Mantra, if you derive it as a protecting thought, it's a repetition, essentially, of a divine name that carries with it divine qualities. A mantra given by a teacher is the most potent of all because it carries with it the enormous divine power and grace of a lineage. Something like my usual example is, imagine there's a reservoir on a hill that feeds water to a village or a town. And let's say that the water we can relabel as the divine essence that carries with it a flow of grace. And that flow of grace goes through a pipeline and arrives at a faucet. And we can open the faucet. Or we can die of thirst, or we can struggle and ask, where is the water? Where is the water? Where is the divine grace? This is a kind of thing which is a normal condition. I don't want water. I'd rather drink Coca-Cola. But the Coca-Cola factory requires water also. So if I want to quench my thirst directly, then I make use of the faucet and drink the water, the nectar of divine grace, which is always flowing. This 19th century mystic Ramakrishna says, the wind of God's grace is always blowing. We have but to set our sail, or we'll catch it. The vast transformation is done by this flowing grace, comprising of these evolutionary forces and comprising of these subtle elements that rearrange themselves to coordinate and match your thought movement and produce the experience and scenes and world that is in front of you. You ordered it. Don't complain when it arrives at your door. No, that's not what I ordered. It's exactly what you ordered. And so that faucet is called a competent teacher or a guru. I prefer the term competent teacher because the word guru has been spoiled and maligned from the 1960s onwards. So let's replace it, competent teacher. A teacher that has no motive, either for name or fame or wealth or any other thing. It's sheer love, that's all. So that is it. And then the pipeline will be that lineage. The first thing you ask about a competent teacher is, what is your lineage? What is your family? What is your genetics, your spiritual genetics? And that can be traced back to the source, which acts as the reservoir. Now, the water in the reservoir and the pipeline and coming out of the faucet is the same. And so for that reason, there's only one teacher. We describe it as Sat Chit Ananda, existence itself, knowledge itself, and bliss. Now, the mantra is the opening mechanism. The mantra, the spiritual practice, is the opening mechanism. It's way of opening and accessing this divine grace. It's the way of setting your sail. Because you can see how it's a thought movement, a repetitive positive thought movement, which carries with it the highest emotion, the highest joy. You know it yourself that if you love something or love someone, automatically you're repeating their name. And when you're repeating their name, you're bringing into your area their presence. So how do we access the divine presence? Repeat the divine name with a feeling of love, with no idea of selfishness in it, but purely expressing unconditional love. And love has no reward. Love is unconditional. Love is not a bargaining process or a begging process. Okay, so that concludes our question answer session. We overrun time slightly. And so, thank you. All right. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be on all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Swami.
Merci beaucoup.
Good, Swami.